Hello and welcome to This Week in Ocean City, the interview. This is our new series here at oceancity.com, where we plan to bring you the stories and reflections from some of the people and places that helped you make our resort the vibrant place that it is for millions of visitors who experience it each and every year. I'm Logan Dubel, and for our first show, we're joined here by Susan Jones. She's the executive director of the Ocean City Hotel Motel Restaurant Association. That's the HMRA. Susan has served visitors in this role since 1995. She leads the local hospitality industry and most notably rallied businesses all together during the pandemic a few years ago. She and her family have deep Eastern Shore roots and share a great love for Ocean City. Susan, thanks so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
I am happy to be here. Love this place. You know that.
So tell me a little bit about how things are looking so far this summer. We're a few weeks into the tourism season, and it's been an interesting thing to see how things have changed and gone up and down post-pandemic. So just tell me a little bit about where we're at.
I would definitely say interesting is a great adjective. What's happening right now, historically, and I would say it's going to continue forever. Ocean City's driven by the weather. So if we're going to be successful, we need sunshine. And we have had a really cold spring. It's been cold, it's been windy, we've had some rain. So we've not had the best weather this summer to kick off our season. And because of that, we've had a little bit slower tourism to start out the season. Thankfully, it's almost the end of June, so it should be getting hot anytime soon. But we really need that heat and the sun to drive visitation. So what's going on right now is it's a little bit slower than normal. And we also have people who are wanting to compare this year to 21, 22. We had stellar seasons those 2 years. And that was primarily because people were not cruising the way they were cruising before the pandemic. But now the cruise lines have just given these astronomical deals. So it's really driving people back to where they used to be. So we need, we're kind of right where we were, 2019, 2018. So it's not horrible. It's just, it feels slow.
Right, right. And I think the biggest thing you and I chatted about during the pandemic was so many worker shortages and more visitors than really the workers could keep up with. As most people know, Ocean
Right.
City always has thrived off of the international J1 workers that came here for decades. And obviously, we didn't have some of those students helping out at different businesses all throughout those summers. Tell me a little bit about if you've seen any changes in terms of worker shortage, whether that's dealing with people coming from back home from college or people coming from all around the world.
So we certainly are getting back to the levels that we used to be in terms of workers. Can we use more? Everybody can. Have we changed the way we do business in order to accommodate the number of employees we have? Absolutely. So in a restaurant, that might mean we've changed the menu items. It's not such a broad menu. Maybe we have fewer entrees to cook in the kitchen, so it's easier on the kitchen. In the hotel world, maybe we don't do housekeeping every day. We only do it upon checkout. So there are lots of different changes in the way we do business to accommodate the number of employees that we are able to get. That being said, we are also starting to see a comeback of the J1 International Summer Work Travel students. So that is a cultural exchange program that we have for years had students from Romania, Ukraine, Russia, Ireland, all over the place. So we're starting to see those numbers get back to more normal levels. And I believe this year we have, I want to say it was close to 2,300 the last time I asked. So, the summer of COVID, we only had maybe 100. So we're definitely starting to build back up. In the peak, we had 4,500. But again, because we've changed the way we've done business, we don't need as many as we used to, which is probably a positive thing.
Yeah, and let's chat a little bit about what the HMRA does, because as you said, asking for numbers. And I think a lot of people don't know all the behind the scenes work that goes on when it comes to tourism. So just tell people a little bit about how the HMRA started 50 years ago, I believe, and just tell us a little bit about what you've made it into during your tenure.
Sure. So we actually started in 1971. So we're going on, what is that? Do the math. It's more than 50. Um, We basically are a nonprofit trade organization. So it's very much like a chamber of commerce. However, we are very focused on hospitality. So that is our lane, the hotels, the motels, the restaurants, the attractions. And then the people who serve and sell to those hotels, motels, restaurants, and attractions are our allied members. So we have a lot of allied members like Cisco, people who sell food to the restaurants, people who sell mattresses to the hotels. So we have about 400 people in our membership, 400 companies. And basically, our job is to really be the voice of hospitality. So we want to unite the entire hospitality industry, whether it's the actual businesses who are bringing the visitors in, or the businesses like the allied people who are selling and servicing the hotels and restaurants to bring the supplies to their businesses. So we unite hospitality. We've been doing that for 52 years. And the way we kind of integrate ourselves in the tourism game is, one, obviously, because our hotels, motels, and restaurants, that's all they do. When you're in Ocean City, you do not see any manufacturing. All you see is tourism and real estate. So we are a tourism-based organization. The town of Ocean City has an official Department of Tourism, which is the destination marketing organization for the town. So they have what's called a tourism commission that the mayor, 3 council members, and then several different organizations who are affected by tourism that sit on this tourism commission. So I have a seat on there along with my president. So we help kind of mold and shape the direction of tourism and how things are going. We talk about numbers. And then I also have a board of directors who are also owners of hotels and restaurants that I report to every month. And we talk about, as an industry, what are the issues? What are we facing that we need to come up with a solution for? And how can we generate solutions as an industry? So we very much are an industry focused, all about hospitality. I think that kind of sums it up.
Yes, perfect. And tell me a little bit, speaking of issues, I think one of the biggest things Ocean City, as we move into a new phase of tourism, if you will, I think the biggest thing that we've looked at over the last few years has just been, how do we cement the positive reputation of Ocean City and blast that out across the region over the next decade? And we obviously have Tom Perlazzo, who has made a lot of changes in his new position. And we have a new branding that's rolled out this summer and certainly gotten a lot of attention from everyone. So just tell me a little bit about the positive impact that you think that will have, and just why it's important for Ocean City to spearhead a positive message all across the region.
Sure. And I think it's important in that question that I kind of go back a little further and sort of lay out the history of how everything has come to the point it's at today. As you said, I started in 1995. And at that time, we did have a director of tourism. And over the course of, a few years, it was like, what's going on? All of the money that is generated by tourism businesses is going directly into the town of Ocean City's general fund. Whereas other destinations and other cities around the state, or other counties around the state of Maryland, had their room tax going into some sort of dedication to build up tourism. So I said to my board, it was an industry issue. We don't have enough money going into the advertising pot to generate tourism, to bring you hotels, motels, and restaurants business. So what can we do about that as an industry? So at the time, our president said, let's go to the city council and suggest that maybe some of this room tax money that is collected by hotels be put back into a dedicated fund strictly for advertising. The initial conversation didn't go so well. They're like, nope, it's the general fund money. And so we just kept talking about it. And then we came up with a solution. We said, all right, we collaborated as an industry. We're going to solve our own problem. How about we suggest we raise the room tax by a certain percentage, and then you dedicate a certain percentage to the advertising fund? Well, that went over a whole lot better because we found a solution to our own problem. And generally, when people do that, the people who don't like the idea are a little more amenable to talking about it or moving forward with it. So in 2008, we had a dedicated fund the room tax was going into a dedicated fund for advertising. Now, it's only a portion of the room tax. It's not the entire room tax. And that's because the town of Ocean City needs money for public safety. They need it for when Public Works sets up cones at maybe a marathon. So there are effects of tourism that affect a municipality. So we have to help them find a way to pay for it. So the room tax, 40% goes into an advertising fund and 60% of the collections go into the general fund. So we still are helping the city pay for it by the money that we're generating from the visitors. So it's not affecting the residents. It's really strictly coming from visitors. So in that whole scheme of things, we then said, all right, we need somebody to really be the captain of the tourism ship. There is our association, there's the Chamber of Commerce, there's the Ocean City Art League, the Ocean City Development Corporation. There was at the time the Downtown Association, lots of different groups who were all affected by tourism, that were doing tourism things, but yet we were all doing our little thing here and there. We weren't collectively doing it in a way that we could really affect tourism. So we lobbied for a captain of the tourism ship, and that person is Tom Perlazzo. So now we have a captain of the tourism ship who is building a team of salespeople to actually go out and sell the destination to sports families for sports tourisms, to meetings and conventions. So what he's been able to do, he's been able to actually segment each piece of what we're looking for in tourism. And he's been able to say, we can go after this particular type of customer by doing X, Y, Z, and we can get this one by this way. But it's great that you can do all that, but you also still have to have some sort of cohesive message for each of these groups. So how do you do that? You can do that through branding. So the exercise was, let's do an advertising agency review. And then we got BVK ad agency from that exercise. And then their first thing was, let's do perception studies. Let's go talk to the people who have never vacationed here, who go to other destinations. Let's talk to vacationers who come here. Let's talk to meeting planners who come here. Let's talk to meeting planners that used to come here that no longer come here. So there were a gazillion surveys and interviews, and lots of work was put into the thought process of how do we get to that brand. So the whole brand is all about being carefree and being happy. And everyone who was interviewed said, they crossed the Bay Bridge, Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and you sort of feel like this relief. You're out of the city, you're out of the traffic, and you come here and you're like, I'm going to go relax. I'm going to be carefree. I'm going to be happy because I'm at the beach. So the smiley face, what does it make you do? It makes you smile. So we're really hoping that that messaging and that branding will carry through not only to the people we want to vacation here, but even down to a granular level of the employees. How can we make the employees happy, and how can we make them smile? So I think that's sort of the 20-minute process of how we got here. But
yeah, and I think it's certainly I'd be remiss if I said it didn't get a lot of attention, but it certainly is growing. The branding is not just on social media at this point. It's gonna, as I'm sure trickle on out throughout the town and pretty much everywhere, and eventually probably start to stick, and we'll start to see that play out. I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about you, because you, as that spiel can demonstrate, know this town pretty much better than everyone. We did a profile 2 years ago together, and you told me this, and it really stuck out. You said, in my family, we knew that during the summer you were working in Ocean City. There was no laying on the beach and doing nothing. And you emphasized just how important, I think, one of the threads of your life, really, it feels like, has been hospitality, making other people happy, carefree, smiling, and just doing something that's pretty much always serving others in some way. Just tell me a little bit about your first job, because I know that is always a fun story in Ocean City, and just why you felt this passion for hospitality and wanted to stay here to continue doing it for your whole career.
Sure. So I started out at Layton's Dippin' Donuts on 16th Street, as you know. And at that time, it was just a small donut shop. And I was a server. Well, first I was the counter girl handing out the donuts and pouring the coffee. And then I worked my way up to the head server. And I was making $5 an hour plus tips back in the late 80s. So I was making a ton of money. And I was like, wow, these cash tips are really pretty cool. And they helped put me through college and buy my books. So I was like, the hospitality industry is pretty fun. And look, I am only, at the time I was 17, 18 years old, bringing home all this cash. So I said, this industry is really an easy way to work hard and do the work and find financial stability. So I think really the most important thing about that job is the person, Larry Layton, who was the owner, he always instilled in us, it's not about just serving. You can serve somebody a donut, you can serve somebody coffee, but how do you make them feel welcome? And that is all about me and what I've tried to build for the association over all these years. Service is serving somebody, hospitality is how do you make them feel? Do you make them feel like they're part of the group? And that could be your staff, that could be the people who are working for you. Are you making them feel like they're part of the team? Or it can be the visitor. Are you making the visitor feel welcome when they walk in your front door? Do you want to make them feel so welcome? They're going to want to come back. So hospitality has definitely always been in my blood. And quite honestly, it always goes back to your mother. She instilled in me the whole motto, the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do to you. So really, hospitality has a lot to do with that too. It's you want to feel good, you want to feel welcome, so make somebody else feel welcome. I think that's,
Let's
yeah.
Perfect. And let's talk a little bit about some of your Ocean City favorites, because I think a lot of people probably look at all the people we talk to and think, wow, I would love to have a job where I could just live in Ocean City. I know you love Thrashers like most, love Mackey's is one of your favorites. Tell me a little bit just about what's been the beauty of getting to not only do this job year round, but live here all year long and just get to experience all kinds of great things.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to actually live in a resort where you can just be a vacationer in your backyard at any given time. So, my favorite is definitely by far the boardwalk, just especially in the wintertime. I love the boardwalk. I like to wrap up, put on your sweatpants and your hat and gloves and just go walk the boardwalk. The fresh air is just reinvigorating and really awesome. I love to kayak. I am definitely a water girl. So it's all about being out on the water. In terms of food, I love seafood. And I had I was at Fishtails the other day, and it was a sweet and spicy shrimp over top of a coconut rice cake. And it was lightly deep fried on top of a bed of coleslaw and seaweed salad, which is like such a weird combination, all of it together, but it was fantastic. So one of the perks of my jobs is definitely knowing, who's serving what and
Yeah, really.
what's new on the menu. So we really like to go out and try new places. And really since COVID, we've seen a little bit of a shift, and we've seen new menu items because they're trying to make it as easy as they can on the kitchen. So lots of new menu items in town. There are lots of new restaurants. So that's always fun to really see what's going on. COVID also really pushed people to make sure that they were doing the best they could. So we have a lot of renovated hotel rooms. We've got the Dunes Manor, which was, an icon in its day. And, a lady built that hotel when she was 70 years old, and she
Right.
was our first female council person. So that's such an iconic place. A management company from South Carolina actually bought that and have turned it into, they completely renovated it. They, closed, they shut down for the winter, and it's now the Hilton Garden Inn. But the company has captured all the essence of the previous owner, who was just such a wonderful, delightful woman. They still have things in there. The meeting rooms are kind of named after some of the old aspects of the hotel. So it's really awesome for me to make sure that we blend in the old with the new, because it's definitely We're seeing a lot of those third generations who are selling because maybe the third generation doesn't have the gusto that the grandparents had, or maybe that's not the reason they're selling, but we're seeing a lot of the third generations get out of the hospitality business. And maybe because, it's completely different than it was in the first generation. So it's important for me to make sure that we still continue the nostalgia and the feeling of being like you're at home when you come to Ocean City, because it is so big. But let's keep those stories going about all those people who built Ocean City, who made Ocean City what it is today. And you talk about a favorite activity and a favorite place that Mr. Jenkins has, the Jolly Rogers Splash Mountain Water Park. So that has always been a favorite of mine. Took the kids there growing up throughout their years, and I really love seeing what he does with that, because there's always kind of like a new ride or a new aspect. A couple years ago, he added the free circus. So you've got lots of things that people try to do to welcome the families.
And you talked a lot about change there. And that's pretty much one of the last things I want to ask you. Just how are the challenges different that you face now, and things you work on as it relates to tourism with the HMRA that maybe weren't the same when you first started?
Well, I think one of the things that's totally the same and super frustrating that we can't figure it out, because we are an industry that likes to figure things out, is our transportation. Because we are a rural area, and in the winter, we're only 8,000 people that live in Ocean City. But in the summer, we're the state of Maryland's second largest city on a weekend. So, how do you go from being like here to up here? And how do you get the number of employees that you need to service up here levels? And transportation is a barrier, because we have a lot of people who live in the south end of Worcester County who want to work, but maybe they don't have cars, and they might have to take the public transportation. But the public transportation, of course, is prohibited. They have a budget, and if they can't get drivers, or if they don't have the money to run so many shifts, then we can't get the people from the south end of county to come up to work in the north end of county where we need them. So that's been a problem since I started, and we have not figured that one out yet. There were a couple years that we did express routes. So we would do shuttles that really worked with the hotel's schedules for housekeeping. And then maybe that didn't work with the restaurant schedules for the cooks. So, and then now with COVID, the budget cuts are like, so we haven't figured that problem out yet. Now, a challenge that has changed, seasonal housing. We used to be able to find it a little more readily for those people who came in from college towns and wanted to work at the beach and live at the beach for the summer. COVID completely destroyed the seasonal housing, because people were working remotely. So they wanted to be hanging out at the beach while they were working remotely. So some of the seasonal housing went into a weekly rental pool, because Airbnb, VRBO, all those short-term rental platforms make it really easy, if you own a condo, to rent your condo out for a week, and you make a whole lot more money than you do renting it out for the entire season. So a lot of our seasonal housing went into the short-term rental pool. So that has been a challenge that has changed during my tenure here. And I don't know that that will ever go back to the way that was. And I don't know how to solve that. So that's a problem that we have to work on.
So with all these different challenges that you've dealt with over the last 3 decades and been exposed to the industry pretty much your whole life, what would you say keeps you motivated to stay in Ocean City and just keep on taking all this in every single day?
Because I'm living at the beach. Like, you're working and living in a place that you can vacation in. So how cool is that, that I'm not like stuck in this hot, humid inner city in a high-rise condo? I think that's probably the driving force, is really, my job is fun. I get to live and work at the beach. And I also, because I've been here so long, I've formed relationships with all of our members. So we've become the go-to, hey, I got a question, I'm going to call Susan. I got a question, let's call the HMRA. I want to meet somebody, let's call them, because their mission is people connecting and uniting the industry. So I think that's what is also a driving force for me. It's being able to continue those relationships that we've built and being able to continue to connect and unite the industry. That's really, it's very rewarding to do that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for taking time to talk with us. We really appreciate it. We hope you all enjoyed this conversation, and we'll be back with more conversations from the people and places that make Ocean City thrive all summer long. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me.